You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
We just got to go out and express ourselves.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We just got to get the job done. I'm here to get the job done.
Подача, Остин все-таки забил.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Keller. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word.
Unbelievable. He ran around a bit like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone. I'm the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, thank you for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And I think this week's episode is just a little bit sweeter after that final save from Alex McCarthy meant that Saints took 3 points away from St. Mary's and sent Bournemouth back down the coast, just a little bit worse for wear. And I think a lot of people deserve some credit for their performance on Saturday. I just wanted to start this episode with a shout out to all of the fans who were present at St. Mary's that very day. Neither myself nor George were there on Saturday, but the noise that was emitted from the ground, the support that you showed for the players and the coaches was immense and was incredible. And I think it's really played a role in how the team responded. And I think there were a few instances when, we passed it backwards and maybe that got a little bit annoying, but for the most part, it was great. And I will say that Adam Leach, who does the Total Saints podcast with Ben Stanners, did mention that maybe there was a bit too much celebration, and I think I understand what he meant in that we still have a lot of work to do. We didn't win a cup final. It was one game against Bournemouth, a team that we would expect to be better than anyway. But that being said, the fact that we put it all together, that Tadic had the game he did, that Lemina played the way he did, that McCarthy came up big, that everybody kind of put in a shift and did their work. And, we finally hit somebody on a counterattack. It was a great day and a great performance. And we've said it all season, and I almost don't want to say it, but that's just something that we have to take forward if we're going to stay in the league, and hopefully we can build on that and get it done. But anyway, today, the day that I'm recording this, not the day you're listening to it, is my wife's birthday. I have lots of other things that I must attend to, but my interview with George Galpin, who works for Sky Sports News, is here. It's coming up very, very shortly. You can follow him on Twitter at GGalpin95. He's also GGalpin95 on Instagram. It was a fantastic time talking to George, so I hope that you enjoy it. We'll talk about all of the normal stuff. We'll take a listener question or two. We'll look back in the match, and hopefully it goes as well as I think it went. So all that being said, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the show, and we'll talk to you next time. All right? So here's my interview with George. Enjoy it, and have a great day. We'd like to welcome to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, George Galpin. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram at GGalpin95. And we're here to talk about kind of an emotional match, an emotional roller coaster maybe, and a big win against Bournemouth on Saturday, 2-1. And we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk a little bit about how he came to work at Sky Sports and all of that. So, George, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time out of your day to join me.
Pleasure to be on, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. We talked a little bit before, wanting to have you on, and then just trying to find the proper way to ask somebody out of the blue, hey, do you want to talk to me on Skype, and not sound like a complete weirdo. So appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So I guess usually we start before we get into kind of the recent matches and things like that. We start kind of with a little bit about you. So we kind of talked a little bit about where you live. You don't live in Southampton, but are you from the area, or how did you first become associated, or how did you first become a Saints fan?
Well, I grew up near Bath, which is about an hour and a quarter away from Southampton. So my family wasn't really a Southampton supporting family as such, but my stepmum's family was. But half of them were Southampton, and half of them supported a much worse club a few miles down the road. I think you know the one I mean.
Yeah, not Bournemouth.
No, the other one. And so I kind of got into Saints that way, and where we were going down to see that side of the family, and we ended up going along to see Southampton, and from then it's been Saints all the way, really.
When you were doing that, were they already moved into St. Mary's, or were they still at the Dell?
No, they were just moved into St. Mary's. This was about 2002, 2003.
And so early on, when you were watching and kind of just becoming acquainted with the team, like any particular player, any particular match, anything like that stand out to you as being kind of like your first real memorable experience?
My first game was quite memorable, because my first game was an FA Cup quarterfinal against Manchester United. It was a game where we got absolutely thrashed. We lost 4-0. But I loved going. It could have been 10-0, but I just loved being at St. Mary's and experienced my first game. So my first real heroes at that time were sort of Peter Crouch. I loved James Beattie, Kevin Phillip, Claus Lundetvam, players like that, really.
Sometimes I forget that Crouch played for us. He's played for the other team down the road. He's played for seemingly everyone, and still manages to score against us almost every time we see him. So hopefully we won't see him next year in the championship. Living kind of away where you live, do you then have a kind of an away ground you prefer to visit and prefer to see the team play?
Because it was only just over an hour. I did have a season ticket. I had a season ticket 2010. So me and my dad went to a fair few games in League One. My stepmom had left by that time, and it was sort of like, right, what do we do on a Saturday? So we bought season tickets. So my first season ticket was the season we got out of League One, which was wasn't a bad time to start, let's be honest.
No.
But in terms of away grounds, the closest ones were like Swindon, Bristol City. We went to Bristol City a few times to see them with Saints. It was quite interesting losing twice to Bristol City when a lot of my dad's side of my family are Bristol City fans, so I'd get an awful lot of stick when we lost to them.
You're not the first supporters I've heard of from Bath, and so I know that John, who does the Saints FC podcast, lives or is originally from Bath, and so I'm looking at it on a map right here. Like, what is that trip like, making the trip down to Southampton? Like, what time, if you're 3 p.m. kickoff, like what time are you leaving your house and things like that? And what's the ride down like for you from Bath to St. Mary's?
Well, it's not really Bath. It's actually, about half an hour south of Bath is a place called Westbury.
Okay.
So mainly down the A36 through Salisbury. So it's 3 p.m. kickoff. Me and my dad would leave about 12 o'clock. It's a fairly straight road. It's through typical English countryside, very quaint. You get to Salisbury, tend to fly through Salisbury, and then past Romsey onto the M27, and then so you go through Southampton and you see sort of the docks area. So it's actually quite a nice, sort of I wouldn't say picturesque, but it's quite nice to see Southampton as it is. It's a port city. So as you're looking, you see the docks, you see the harbour, and you see that side of the city come up, which is quite nice because you sort of remember what Southampton is rather than how it always was, and you can sort of imagine it that way.
Yeah. So when we were there, we took the train down from London, got off at Southampton Central, rented a car, and drove to Stonehenge. And so I'm familiar with the M27 in Salisbury in the 36. But I'll be honest with you that having never driven on that side of the road or sat on that side of a car and driven, I was so focused on just not getting in an accident that I didn't really pay attention to any of the countryside. I just know the lanes are kind of narrow, compared to what I'm used to. And I was just trying not to clip anybody on the way through. So, but I do remember coming back into Southampton, trying to get to St. Mary's and coming through and seeing the docks and being I live by the ocean, but we don't have ships like that where I'm from. And so just seeing the size of that and like you said, it is kind of what Southampton is, and it's what it's about. And, it's kind of the history is all there behind it. So it's nice. So yeah. But now you work at Sky Sports News. And so how does that happen? Had you always wanted to work in that industry, or when did that become something that you were focused on and wanted to achieve?
I done a degree. I done a sports journalism degree at Southampton Solent. People will know it. If you walk the ground from the city, it's the uni in the middle of the city. Then I moved up to Wolverhampton to do another journalism qualification. And towards the end of that, my tutor knew I wanted to work in sport. She got sent an email saying that the placements are open for Sky Sports News. I've always dreamt of working at somewhere like Sky Sports News, but I never thought it was sort of possible. So I applied with help from a tutor, and I got in, managed to do 2 weeks, and worked on three different departments within Sky Sports News. And two of them said, "We like the look of you. Do you want to come back in for trials?" And trialed, and yeah, they were both very happy. And so I'm working. So it's kind of a work experience way in, and they seem very happy with me. And so yeah, that's how I got in.
What's been the biggest difference between kind of learning about journalism in school and then actually kind of jumping into Sky Sports News? Like, has there been anything that has been drastically different, or is it all kind of lined up and worked out kind of the way you thought?
I mean, when you have lectures and seminars, you're sort of thinking, what's the point in this? But then, sometimes, but then you get into that newsroom environment where things are going on. You can hear lots of different things being talked about. You've got the main channel, you can see the whole ticker, and it's like, wow, and then you start using the stuff you've learned about, and it's like, so that's what that's for. That's why I've been taught about that. And I guess the main difference is just the environment, where you're learning about something and there's no real pressure, to then going into a newsroom where you've got to get stuff out for the hour, you've got to get stuff out in, say, 20 minutes, ready to go on air. You've got to get, perfect, make sure all the bits are set up, ready to go out at that specific time. So I'd probably say the pressure aspect of it, to be honest.
Anybody you've worked with, like, that you maybe saw on TV as a kid or listened to on the radio as a kid, and then surprised you with their work ethic or how they behave off air?
I guess what you learn is that even though they're people that you've seen for years, and you see them almost on a pedestal almost, and then you meet them and you just think, well, they're just a normal person, if that makes sense. So I've seen, obviously, because Matt Letizia works in around Sky, I haven't talked to and met Matt myself, talked to him whilst at work, but he just comes across as a very normal guy, and you just have to you sort of learn that yes, these people are very famous and they're obviously very talented at what they do, whether it's presenters or whether it's ex-footballers or whatever. They're just normal people, and it's quite cool to see someone, for example, like Matt Letizia, just going about his regular normal working day, and how normal he is, really, in a way. It's quite interesting.
Any change from once you started working in the newsroom to how you kind of view all of the football, or is it your perspective kind of stayed the same for most of that time?
You get a more appreciation of how the media works, because as a Southampton fan, you sort of think, oh, why aren't we concentrated on, why aren't we talked about? And then you sort of see why obviously bigger clubs and other clubs are more favoured. And I guess in terms of coaches, and I wouldn't say sympathy, but you get much more of an understanding of the pressure they're under, because so for example, last week I was working on the post-match Stoke Burnley stuff, and these guys who are under enormous pressure, I know they're paid a lot of money, but guys like Sean Dyche and Paul Lambert, they come in from what is a very intense game or whatever. Paul Lambert's job presumably rides on him keeping Stoke in the Premier League, and to then go from that very intense feeling where we drop points, we're going to go down, it's looking more likely that they're going down, to suddenly be shoved in front of a camera, being asked questions literally 2 minutes after they've gone down the tunnel. You get you get an appreciation of, wow, okay, these guys are under enormous amounts of pressure, and how they deal with the media is very important, and you get a much better understanding of that, I think.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I know it's not 2 minutes after you've gone down the tunnel, but are you okay with moving on kind of to the match from yesterday?
Let's rock and roll.
All right. So it's a different feeling waking up today and knowing that we're going to talk about this. And I'm always excited to do the podcast. I'm always excited to talk to people, but today's feels a little bit better because I think of the result yesterday. And by any means, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have plenty of work to do, but I can just say right now that I'm feeling okay and pretty good about how the team played yesterday. And it's nice to play well and get a result, I think. But let's start with the lineup because, going into yesterday, it had been something like 22 weeks without a victory at home. I think the last time we won at home in the Premier League was against Everton, if I'm correct, way back in November.
You are correct.
And that was kind of when Everton was at their lowest point. And that was a match where I thought we were really going to kick on it and play well after that. And of course, we all know what's happened since then. So, the lineup comes out. It's we have three center backs. Stevens does not return. Bednarak keeps his place, which I think is fair for him. I think people maybe have questions over Hoot, if Stevens should have come in there, but I think it's either a 5-4-1 or a 3-5-2, however you want to see it. And so for you, your thoughts on playing, three center backs in a match where we, have to score and have to win. We're not playing necessarily a big team in Bournemouth. But what'd you make of that? And then even some of the personnel that were deployed by Mark Hughes?
I guess the formation, I think the fact that we're playing three centre backs means we can push Cedric and Bertrand on. It means we don't have to have three midfielders, so we can go a little bit more attacking in midfield. So we only have the two centre midfielders. Normally we probably have to have a third man in there. The three centre backs we've got out, I'm not entirely sure on the quality of them, but I can sort of see why he's gone for that formation.
I tend to think that Bertrand and Cedric are as good as anybody else in the squad that we have at providing the width that the formation gives you, giving them the license to get forward and get crosses in. I know Cedric's gotten a lot of criticism over this year. His shooting is atrocious. But last year he was the most accurate crosser of the ball in the Premier League, and so he can get the job done. It's just do we have people in the box that are going to be there? And I think I was kind of glad we didn't go with Romeu, Lemina, Højbjerg, that trio in central midfield, because I think that's a bit too defensive. I think we need somebody that can get forward and be slightly more creative. So with Tadic there, I think that's a creative kind of, that is where our creativity is going to come from. Redmond has the pace and kind of the energy to go and press if he can be, kind of motivated to do so, and he could assist Austin. And then with Bertrand and Cedric kind of being willing to get forward, I think that's an okay formation. And I think it provides us a little bit more security, on the back line, assuming that those guys can stay switched on, which, we'll come to when we talk about Bournemouth's goal. But, any problem for you with Ward-Prowse missing out, maybe?
I think what our biggest threat really a lot of the time has been from set pieces. So I'm sort of surprised that Ward-Prowse hasn't had much game time over the last few weeks. But then if you sort of think about where he is most effective, you probably would say as a sort of a defensive right midfielder. So obviously if you're playing a formation where you've got wing backs, he's not going to fit into the team. So I can sort of see why he hasn't played. And I wouldn't have wanted him to play over someone like Nathan Redmond. I know Nathan Redmond gets a lot of criticism, but in a game like that where you need creativity, alongside Tadic and Austin, you also need pace. And then Ward-Prowse clearly doesn't have any pace. I think when we played Chelsea at home 2-3 weeks ago, we struggled because although we had long, that was our only outlet. Yeah, it was Nathan Redmond, to give him his credit, does offer an outlet down the wing, or simply just by running in behind. So I can sort of see why James Ward-Prowse didn't play.
Yeah, I don't think this is the best formation for him to play in, as you mentioned. And when I think back to the match this year that I think Redmond has been the best in is when we played Man City, and we played a similar formation to what we played yesterday. And that was the game where kind of Pep was giving him the pep talk afterwards, if you remember that. And I thought that was, he ran his socks off, and he was back defending and then forward pressing their center backs and doing everything that he could do. And that was the role that he was supposed to fulfill. And I think that's where he is the best. And it's, he doesn't quite have the final ball, the final decision making at times. Sometimes he surprises you. When he fired that goal in earlier this year, he just got the defender backed off him a little bit too much, and it just doesn't happen enough. And maybe that was last year. I can't really remember, but I just remember that goal going in the top corner, going like, oh, that's what we want to see. But overall, yesterday when we didn't have Long on there, I thought Austin would play because I thought we're probably, we need to create a few chances, and Austin needs to put it away, and then that will allow us to hopefully hit them on the counter. And we need to have somebody like Redmond on there to be able to do that. And of course, it was Tadic for both goals yesterday, which were spectacular, and we'll move on to that. But the one other thing that I would like to mention here is, it came out earlier in the week that Buffal, being sick over the past week or so, that he had kind of a falling out. There had been an incident on the sideline and in the locker room. Mark Hughes had sent him to train with the under-23s, and Mark Hughes has repeatedly talked about this idea that he's quickly finding out who wants to play for the shirt. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of us thought, and I know I did, I thought Lemina was in that boat as well, because I didn't think his performance was particularly inspiring last week in the FA Cup semifinal. I thought he would have been one of the guys to be dropped, and it's tough, I think, on Højbjerg to leave him out, because I feel like he's been a guy that has run hard and played hard, and a lot of fans are calling for him to be captain at some point. But then Lemina gets the start. He comes out with the freshly dyed hair, and it's like a whole new him. It's like this is the guy we bought. So were you surprised to see him start over Højbjerg?
I've got to be honest, I was to a certain extent, but then let's be fair. When Lemina's on it, he's one of our best players, and yesterday he was definitely on it. He provided something that we don't have a lot of in midfield, which is sort of that ability to just carry the ball. Romeo, Højbjerg, Davis, Ward-Prowse, they're all very similar in that they like to pass at 5 yards, 10 yards, but Lemina's able to add dynamism to centre midfield, which we really needed, because when you've got 5 defenders, you don't want to be too defensive in midfield as well. So to have that guy who can carry the ball forward, like he did for the first Tadic goal, he carried it 20 yards and then played a lovely pass through to him. So I was surprised to see him in the team, but then when his performance warranted that. The only thing I would say about Chelsea is that he'd missed the game on the Thursday because of a sort of a hamstring problem that was caused by his back. So perhaps where he was being thrown in, where Højbjerg had played the Sunday, then the Thursday, Højbjerg was unlikely to play 3 games in a week in a formation where he needs to be physically, bang at it. Perhaps Lemina wasn't fully fit coming back, but yesterday he looked back to his back.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got a lot of stuff going on personally. He's got a kid coming and all that stuff. So who knows what sleep patterns and everything else are like. So it's nice to see him back and fully, seemingly fully fit and committed. And I think that's all Saints fans want, is we want people who are committed to each and every tackle, to, for the full 90 minutes and really put themselves about. And I think if we do that and we lose, so be it. I just don't think we've seen enough of that this season, consistently from people. That's all. But let's kind of go through the match. I was nervous going into the game. I was, worried that we played some bigger matches over the past few months. I think we just keep saying this is a must win, and maybe, that's the wrong term, but we need points. And so coming into Bournemouth, a lot of people saying Bournemouth don't have anything to play for. They could have mathematically, sealed themselves in the Premier League had they got a win yesterday. So that would have been nice for them. So there was something there, but I don't know. I was nervous going in, but just the way we kind of started the game, maybe a little bit too casual. And I'm always, I think, more critical of our team early on. I always am pointing out mistakes and stuff in my notes because I think that's just how I am. I think that's just my personality. But how long into the game before you kind of felt like, hey, we really have a legitimate chance to take some points from that?
I wasn't surprised that we started off nervously, because obviously, you were talking about the fact that we hadn't won at home since Everton. So automatically you're going out there, you're not on a particularly brilliant run at home. So that's playing in the back of your mind. So obviously, and bearing in mind, Bournemouth went at it from the very beginning, trying to play on that lack of confidence. So I would say it probably took Saints 10 to 15 minutes to really settle in and, get used to who they were playing against, because it was obvious from the Bournemouth lineup they'd added a lot of pace. So they're automatically sort of thinking, are we going to get caught at the back? Or, this could be a tricky game. So it took a bit of time for Saints to really get used to that, I think.
Yeah, and there were a couple of instances, I think, there was one time, I think later on in the match where Bednarak tried to foul, might have been King, and he just couldn't catch him to foul him. And it was like, oh no, this could be terrible. But he, eventually recovered. But, for the first, like you said, 10 to 15 minutes, Bournemouth were coming at us. Cook obviously got booked very early on for a foul on Tadic. And I think that he comes into play later because he makes several mistakes yesterday. But we didn't really get our first real spell of possession until like 13 minutes in. We put a few crosses in, and it kind of ended with a shot being blocked. Both Bertrand and Romeu had shots blocked in the area, and so that I think that was the real first time I stood up as I'm watching the match. I'm sitting here and I'm standing up saying we just need a ball to go in. We just need something to happen. But I thought Bournemouth stayed pretty compact. I thought they did well defensively. And it was just kind of looking for us. You can tell we were trying to find our feet and see where the space was going to develop. And as it started to happen, people started to move more and more off the ball, which I thought, obviously is good, because that's what you need if you're going to pull, something apart. But, we've been punished so often for mistakes. You go back to West Ham, where Lemina kind of, made a mistake off the corner to lead to their first goal in the counterattack. And it was nice to see us capitalize on a mistake from them. So kind of getting into the first goal from Tadic, obviously their corner comes out, Redmond takes a touch, Lemina runs with the ball, and it's just, can Tadic stay onside, and can Lemina put the ball in his path? And then can Tadic get the shot off before, those Bournemouth players, which should have no business making that recovery run and getting there in time. Obviously he puts it away. And I think at that point, that was like most of my family was probably awake at that point because I was yelling at the TV, and my wife had thought the other team scored because I was using quite a few curse words, and so my kids were kind of like, "Uh-oh, like Dad's upset," and I'm like, "No, I'm happy. It's just I'm surprised, I guess." So, as we're looking at the goal, were you shocked at how fast we counterattacked, or did that show something that we haven't had, or what kind of what allows us to do that to them versus having it done to us, I guess?
The first sort of feeling I had was sheer relief, that, oh my God, and then shot, oh my God, we're actually winning. Because I was talking about the confidence that, Saints probably didn't have, whereas Bournemouth were probably sitting back to try and catch us out, and having not caught us out, they sort of had to change tack slightly. I don't know whether that's quite right. So when they pushed forward, we suddenly had that chance, and it was obviously a very, very good finish. Those three players, Redmond, Lemina, Tadic, done really well, obviously, and I think it was good that not only Lemina but Tadic as well, those two combining well to score, because they've had a lot of criticism over the last few weeks how they don't care or whatever.
Right.
But to have Tadic in that position where you could tell he wasn't worried. Sometimes if you're not so emotionally wrapped up in the situation, you can look at it from with a cool head, and I think it showed with Tadic. It showed that in those moments you need to have players who aren't, who maybe aren't going to provide work rate, but are going to put the ball in the back of the net, are going to make those chances, are going to provide the technique, and he certainly did that. So to punish Bournemouth with their first mistake obviously helped us. It played into our hands because it was clear from the formation and everything that we were going to be the ones to sort of play on the break. That suits us more because we've been conceding goals. We have to be sort of almost defence first. So to punish Bournemouth for their first mistake gives us a big psychological boost. Yeah,
and I think you would say the three players most criticized recently in our that were playing today or yesterday, or Saturday, whatever it is. The three players combined to make that goal happen. And I think that is good. I think that does wonders for their confidence. And I think that after that, the worry for us is that we're going to sit back even more. And I don't think we did in the first half. I thought we continued to kind of to push and to test Bournemouth. Austin had that horrible cross that almost looked like a shot, and we won a corner out of it. And I don't know. I thought that the players put in an immense amount of effort yesterday, and I just can't reiterate enough how much I appreciate that from them. Because I think it showed that Mark Hughes' message is getting through to them, that he is kind of connecting with them. And I think that's kind of what you need. You look at some teams who have players that are great, but they don't always put in the effort. And at some point, the players have to take some responsibility for that. But sometimes managing takes a part of that as well. And I don't think that either of our previous two managers really inspired a bunch of confidence from the players, and I don't think they were able to motivate the players as necessary. And I think that maybe it's sending Buffal down to the under 23s that sends the message to I don't care how much you're being paid or whatever. You have to work hard if you're going to be in the 18, if you're going to be in the 11. And I think that maybe that message helps. But that's just speculation, because we only get what Mark Hughes gives us in the press conferences and what we can take from quotes and things from players. But I don't know. I have to give him some credit in getting the players motivated and getting the players working, and then to see it kind of rewarded through Tadic and Lemina kind of getting the goal and the assist, and Redmond having a hand in it as well. I don't know. I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, they definitely, especially Lemina. He was obviously criticised a lot. Same with Tadic, same with Redmond. They all shown why they were in the team. They all stepped up to the plate. I mean, let's be fair that two of those three, Tadic and Lemina, are, especially if we go down, are likely to move on. So, but you want to know that, okay, you might be moving on. You're still, because they obviously have to do it for their teammates.
Right.
You have to show, you're doing it for your teammates. You're not going to let them down. So definitely, it was nice to see.
Now, we should point out, we'll come to Alex McCarthy a bit later, because he had two huge saves in going into stoppage time in the second half. But Ake kind of got himself free. A nice little bit of whatever move that was. I know that I've had forwards do that to me as a defender, and it feels great when your goalie makes the save. But he almost looked like McCarthy was starting to go the wrong way, and he got a foot on it. And I think that was huge, because it didn't look like much, and it kind of came out of nowhere. The ball's bouncing around from a free kick, but he gets his foot on it. And I thought, like you said, like we were going to say, he's had a really good game yesterday. McCarthy deserves a lot of credit. But then Bournemouth do equalize kind of going into halftime, and, coming into the game being nervous the whole time, kind of seeing us start kind of, nervously and me trying to convince myself it's going to be okay. Us scoring is obviously on a high, and we got some confidence. We don't sit back, so it kind of stays there. And then we kind of concede that goal almost out of nowhere. And that was just deflating, and going into halftime now worried, is this going to be it? Is this going to be, the 10 minutes in the Chelsea match at home a few weeks ago? Is this going to be like that? What was that? What was going through your mind as that goal went in, as another forward got free at the back post to put home an equalizer or go ahead goal? I feel like we've seen this before, but what were you kind of thinking about as that was happening?
It was a kick in the teeth. You sort of expecting, we've conceded, here we go again, and you wouldn't, I don't think anyone could be blamed if they felt like that, that, because we have seen it so many times this season where we've conceded goals. I mean, I put up a stat that so far this season we've dropped 19 points from winning positions, so it's not as if it hasn't happened before. So yeah, when that goal went in, you're sort of thinking, after a fairly positive half, to go in level was a real kick in the teeth.
Did you think we were going to come out and be able to push and go ahead, or were you worried that we were going to kind of drop everything? And if it stays a draw at that point, what is that in your mind? What does that do for our survival hopes?
Well, we had to win yesterday. It was as simple as that. The time for good performances but no points or 1 point is gone. It was all about getting that result over performance. We could have played really, really badly yesterday. If we won, fair enough, move on. We've got those points. When that goal went in, you sort of thinking it's going to happen again. I wasn't expecting us to come out, because you'd seen it against Chelsea in that that 8 minutes of madness where we, from such a comfortable position, we fell apart. So from an even less comfortable situation at 1-0, going level 1-1, and you sort of let's not be funny. The fans were obviously thinking that. Well, I bet the players were as well, because they'd seen it happen against Chelsea. Okay, Bournemouth aren't on the same level as Chelsea, but they must have felt it's happening again. So to come out in the second half, regain that lead, shows a lot of bottle, a lot of character, to be fair to them, when we haven't seen an awful lot of displays of real character, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. The one mistake I thought McCarthy made in that first half was the ball's played through. I forget who the attacker was, but Hoot is running with him, and it looks like Hoot's going to deal with it. And McCarthy comes out, and Hoot kind of, there's a collision. Hoot lands on his neck. It looks really, really bad there for a few minutes. The one positive thing was that Hoot was moving. He moved his arms and his legs as he's kind of writhing around on the ground. But, I don't know if there's any blame on McCarthy there or if it's just a miscommunication, but we don't often see McCarthy come out and do that. But were you at all, did you question that decision from him, or is that me being too harsh on McCarthy and, because everybody's okay and we didn't concede, we'll just let it go? Or what were your thoughts on that?
I guess we've been so used to seeing Fraser Forster, staying rooted to his line, not coming out at all, that McCarthy coming off his line, take responsibility, was a bit of a shock. I wouldn't say I'd particularly blame McCarthy for coming out to claim it. He's the goalkeeper. He has to take the lead, and okay, it could have been a lot worse, but I can semi-understand why he's done that, why he wanted to take the lead in that situation.
Yeah. Now McCarthy's not the paciest, and I don't think we particularly play a super high line most of the time, but if we do, McCarthy's got to be out a little bit closer to be able to deal with that. I think maybe he got caught a little deep and maybe caught in two minds, because like you said, we don't often have our goalkeeper come out and do that. That's not normal for us. Or at least not that we've seen. And so I was shocked to see him in the picture. Honestly, I thought this is a ball that's going to go out for a corner probably. And that'll be okay. And then all of a sudden it was just like, the medics are on the field. And I was like, oh God, I hope he's all right. But luckily he got up and was fine. And, neck injuries are scary. So I'm just glad he's all right. But, then of course we go into halftime. It's 1-1. Possession's been fairly even. Actually, Bournemouth had a bit more than we did. We had more shots. We had more shots on target. So I think we were making use of our possession, which is something that is good, because oftentimes, we've outpossessed teams by a lot, under Pellegrino and under Puel, and just nothing comes of it. So the fact that we're actually doing something with the ball, I thought was encouraging. And then our second goal comes from kind of a mistake from them. And, the ball kind of hoofed up, and Cook just takes a bad touch off his chest, and Tadic is there, to take it from him and just goes all the way himself. And you have Redmond screaming from it. You have, Austin making a run. And it was just kind of a weird toe poke finish, but the ball was moving, dipping away from the goalkeeper. It was great. I don't know what to you, I'll let you start kind of go into detail on it, but what stood out to you on that goal, kind of from the moment the ball leaves, I think, McCarthy's foot to, it going in the back of the net from Tadic? Well,
obviously, as I mentioned before, that a lot of the time we were sort of wanting to draw out Bournemouth and for them to make the mistakes, and they've made, it's a clear mistake from Steve Cook. And what I quite like is how Tadic took control of that situation, like McCarthy had, with where he clobbered Hoyt. Mm-hmm. Tadic has stepped up, and if he hadn't have put it in the bottom corner, he would have got an awful lot of stick. But the fact is that he obviously felt confident from his first goal that he thought, I'm going to try it, and he done the right thing. And credit to Tadic yesterday, he really did step up. He really, he's done his bit. We do need players like that, where they're going to step up, and okay, he might not be a typical, stereotypical leader, but if he steps up and does stuff like that, you can see why he's well liked by his teammates, because he clearly stepped up with that goal. The finish itself, to try something like that in such a high pressure, in a very high pressure situation, has to be admired as well, because there was no other way really he was going to score that goal. So credit to him.
Yeah, I think in that situation, somebody with less confidence lays the ball off to Redmond, because then, I've stolen the ball. I've made the run here,
It's the safe option.
Yeah. Yeah. And so sometimes you need to take that risk. You need someone willing to go like, I have this, we need this right now, and I'm going to do this. And like you said, if it doesn't come off, then he's criticized. But I think that's what we need. We need somebody that has the confidence to do that, because we don't have a lot of goals in the team, period. So to have him score that, and I think he scored, was it at home against Chelsea, or was it in the cup semifinal? But it was, he's been getting on the score sheet. He's been getting forward more, which is, maybe that comes from Hughes. Maybe I don't know. But, I think my kind of favorite thing about that is that you can watch as the ball is coming over to Cook, as soon as Cook is getting on the ball, and I think it becomes clear that he's not going to head it, Tadic is on him. And so he gives Cook, as soon as there's a little bit of a mistake, which maybe it comes from the pressure of Tadic being around, or maybe it's just a quick reaction from him. As soon as that ball comes off Cook's chest, Tadic is on it and is away. And I think that is maybe something that we lack from time to time, is that willingness to just anticipate and put the other team under some pressure and force them to make a mistake, so that it puts us in a good position. And because if we only allow or rely on the striker to do that, there's nobody there to run the other defender off. If you watch the replay, you can see there's another kind of defender coming over. Maybe it's a midfielder, but he's kind of pointing at Ake to go towards Austin. And I think that little bit of space, the fact that Ake had to go towards the sideline and not goal side of Tadic, gives him the space to make the shot, to take the shot and to put it away. And so I think from that perspective, I think that was something that we've lacked a lot of this year. And so I think that for me was, I guess, my favorite part of the entire goal was just the willingness to go like, I'm going to put him under pressure. I'm going to, and here we go. And now we're in. And I think for me, that's something that we haven't done enough of this year. And I can't praise kind of the guys enough for just putting in that little bit of extra effort, a little bit of maybe mental awareness and everything else that goes with it.
I think that was a big problem under Pellegrino, that if you control possession but you're so safe with it and you don't take risks, you're not going to win games in the Premier League. You have to take risks. And Tadic, gets a criticism sometimes Tadic gets is that, he gives the ball away sometimes. But if you don't take risks, if he takes a risk and he gives the ball away, okay, fair enough. You have to have players who are not just going to play the safe option every time. If you've got a player of Tadic's technique and quality, why would you want to limit them to just playing 5-yard passes? Keep the ball, keep it safe, because teams are just in the Premier League are just going to sit back and go, right, well, we'll wait for you to give it to us, and then we'll hit you on the break. And I think the fact that we were playing with 5 defenders also helps Tadic, because it means that he doesn't have to, he knows his job is to score goals. So, he's not thinking about tracking back so much. And it's the same with Austin and possibly with Redmond as well yesterday. Redmond and Austin both felt that they could put all their energy, or at least most of it, into attacking, which, that's their strength. That's what they're there to do. It's okay saying, oh yeah, you've got to track back, but their job is to score goals. Their job is, is to win us the game. So having those players in a formation where they feel less burdened defensively really helps. And we going back to that formation. Perhaps this is the formation that suits Saints, not because we might not be so strong at centre back, but if it means that we can get more out of our attacking players, then why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I necessarily have a problem with the formation, especially. I don't know. We played okay with it. Obviously, a slightly different personnel under Koeman when we played with a back three. But I think it allows, like we said, our wing backs to get forward. I think it allows us some freedom, and it allows Tadic some freedom to go and do the things that to have one job, and that is support the striker and be creative. And I think he does that well.
Koeman used that formation when we were leaking goals, to give us a bit more solidarity at the back. But you can see why it would help attacking wise, because if you've got, yesterday, for example, we had 5 defenders and Oriol Romeu, who is a defensive-minded midfielder. That allows Lemina to push forward. That allows Redmond and Tadic to almost, in a way, cheat a little bit. They don't have to get back. They can just concentrate solely on doing their thing and not having to worry about shape, having to worry about getting back. And it really worked yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I just do have to clarify one thing. I made a mistake. It was not the same Cook making a mistake as the card. So Lewis Cook got a card early on. Steve Cook.
Yeah.
Sorry
Lewis
about that. There's
right.
too many cooks and everything else.
Too many cooks for the broth.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I don't know, coming out of that match, I don't know, is there, actually, before we get there, going into stoppage time, things were a little bit tight, and I had to go to my kids' games, unfortunately, that were much less interesting, than the Saints game. And so I was trying to I had the video on my phone in my pocket and I was listening, but I didn't see everything. And so I had to come home and watch it. And it seemed to get a little bit tighter. It seemed like maybe the idea that we have to protect what we have once we had that 2-1 lead going into stoppage time, it seemed like Bournemouth really did kind of pour it on. And I wrote on Instagram and kind of my little match review that I was really happy with the performance. And somebody pointed out on Facebook that no, it wasn't all that great. There were still aspects of it where you could see the old ideas coming back, and the idea that we have to sit back and protect that started to creep in late in the game. But I kind of think that's what every team does at 2-1 in stoppage time, is you just defend. And I think that's just normal, whether it's the right thing to do or not. I think that's just kind of how it goes. But I don't know, I think McCarthy came up huge with 2 big saves, almost right in a row, almost from similar shots in similar areas, but, one save with his legs, and then the diving kind of punch or parry or whatever it was that I thought there was no way he was getting there. And that ball was definitely going in the corner. So going into stoppage time, were you worried at all about the result, or were you semi-confident that we were going to see it out?
I think going back to the point that, we sat back, I don't think that was tactically what they were meant to do. I think that's just a mental sort of aspect that, because we haven't been winning games at home, we haven't won at home since November. In the back of your mind, if you're a player, you're thinking we have to hold on to this. So you're not going to take risks, try and push on for a third. You're going to drop back. So I don't think that was tactically what they wanted to do, but mentally wise, they weren't going to take the risk. So in stoppage time, when you've been dropping a lot of points from winning positions, and you're constantly reminded that we haven't won since November, we've been dropping points. It's gonna be tense. I was so nervous watching those last 5 minutes. I'd look at the clock, 82 minutes. Look what seems like 10 minutes later, and suddenly it's only just 83. Those moments are so tense. Mm-hmm. And you can understand the players being tense as well. And there was a few times where they would give the ball away, not because they were trying to take risks to win the game, but because they were probably so nervous that you make mistakes when you're nervous. That's the nature of it. So you go into stoppage time, and I don't think we can give enough credit to McCarthy for stepping up, because for whatever reason they kept back and Forster throughout the whole season. I don't think Forster makes that save. I don't think Forster, with confidence-wise and possibly technique-wise, would have adjusted and made that save. But the fact was that McCarthy made it. He's arguably been our player of the season. He's been playing well. So the fact that he's playing well, and he really stepped up with that save, because it's a difficult save to make. Fraser's the second save, especially if Fraser's hit that, it's come off Cedric. So the ball's changed direction. Uh-huh. So he has to make a split-second decision to go, oh, okay, I need to dive this way instead of that way. And the fact that he made it, really, that would have given us more confidence as well going away from that game. Because we can not only, concede and come back into a game, but we can also hold on to it. And the fact that we've got a keeper that has been very, very good will give the defenders a lot of confidence, and if you've got that base where you feel very confident, it means the whole team can sort of not worry. And moments like that will give Saints an enormous amount of confidence, I think.
Yeah. And it's, sometimes defender makes a mistake, puts a guy through one-on-one with a goalkeeper, and you kind of back the goal scorer in that instance to put it away. Saw that with Arsenal against Atletico Madrid. And that something like that can be hugely deflating. And when a goalkeeper comes up there, you tell him thank you, and then you just try not to make that mistake again. But I think for McCarthy because it's just such a quick reaction. There's no time to think about that. That's instinct and training and just kind of being in the moment. And for him to do that, for him to make that save, if you watch the way the players celebrate it, it is like, they know, we have this. That's the difference between kind of I guess a big mistake that leads to a one-on-one versus a goal versus a save like that is there's no, oh, thanks for bailing me out. That's just like, we're all in this together,
Yeah.
And I think that is so important for us going forward, because everybody has to be there. Everybody has to be willing to put in that effort to, because sometimes you see goalkeepers just kind of stand and watch that ball go, like, oh, that's the corner and I'm not doing it and I'm already going the wrong way. And just to see him do that and almost reach back and kind of punch it away or parry it away, it was I don't know, it was great. When I will be honest, we were talking before we recorded, I have quite a filthy mouth. I just try not to show it on here. And when I heard the announcers kind of say what was going on, I ripped my phone out of my pocket, and then I yelled several swear words, and all the parents on the sideline kind of turned around and looked at me, and I was just like, sorry, I was just like, I'm not at your kids. It's not at your kids. So I apologize. And my wife's just like, would you just, shut up? So, it was slightly embarrassing, but I'll live with it, because, it was great. And,
I can understand why you did it, because I when I saw the shot, I thought, oh my God, here it comes. And then to see the ball sort of punch it away, I went nuts. It was like we'd scored. It was that kind of feeling where you're expecting the worst, and then to suddenly for him to pop up with that, I went nuts. It was like, you almost felt like, oh my God, we're actually going to win this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that sort of feeling from it.
And it's, you think, and I don't want to discredit Fraser Forrester, because I think he's done some very, very good things for the club. And I think for a few years he was fantastic. I still remember the performance against Arsenal, when he just seemingly made every save possible. And then I think back to, the EFL Cup semifinal against Liverpool, I think, where he kind of clawed that one back, just as it was going over the line. And you think about that, but the difference between that was kind of a calamity in front of goal, there. And he manages to scoop it away. Whereas this is a shot that, is well enough worked by Bournemouth, and it's doesn't come from a big mistake necessarily from anybody. And he just manages to just pull it out. And that's what we need. And hopefully, I think there are a couple of instances in the game, whether it's Tadic latching onto the ball, the mistake from Cook, and putting it away, whether it's that save from McCarthy, whether it's the recovery run from Hoot after he gives the ball away to Ake, and then he tries to put Defoe through. I think all of those things are moments that we can look back on and say, like, that is the commitment we need for the next 3 games if we're going to get out of this. And so, yeah, but just a quick kind of wrap up of team news before we answer a question. We talked about Buffal a little bit earlier, and the failure, I guess the accusation is that he failed to get up and warm up when he was asked, and it was against Chelsea at home in the league. Hughes' reaction to that in terms of dropping him to the under-23s, do you have any issues with that? And how do you see this playing out long term? Of course, Hughes is on a short-term contract, but if he stays, do you think this is the end of Buffal, or do you think he has the chance to come back into the team, or kind of how do you see this playing out?
I absolutely have no issues with Hughes for dropping Buffal. Because you were talking just then about everyone needing to be together, and if Buffal didn't warm up, and you can't allow for that in a situation that we're in. They need to be all together. So if Buffal's behaving like that, I've got no issue with Hughes punishing him like that. I don't think it'll really affect Buffal as such, because I think even if we do stay up, I think he will be going, because it's been 2 seasons where the first season you can say, okay, he's been injured. You know, he had a big injury before he came that affected pre-season, that, you know, meant that his whole season was disrupted. But now he's had a full pre-season, and for whatever reason, he probably has been mismanaged. He probably hasn't been trusted as much as he should have been. But if he's behaving like that, and, you know, that doesn't send out a good sign he wants to stay. So I wouldn't be that averse to him going on. I don't think how he dealt with that situation will affect him staying. I don't think they can, you know, say he kept us in the Premier League. I don't think they're going to go, well, we didn't like the way he dealt with Boufal, so we're not going to keep you. I don't think that comes into it because of the situation we're in at the moment.
Right. Okay. So you think Boufal's off no matter what, whether we stay up or go down?
I think with that whole behaviour and, you know, other 2 or 3 little things alongside that, I think Boufal would be one of those that you say, yeah, he's going, especially if we go down, because he's on fairly big wages. He's one of those that, because he's come in from Europe, the fact that if we're going down, his reputation abroad will not have dropped too much, that we will likely have interest anyway, I think.
I don't know where I read it, or if it was a reputable source or not, but I saw something like he's on like £60,000 a week. And that's a fair chunk of change, for us to be paying somebody to not play, but I'd rather have him out of the lineup if he's not going to play and do the job we need him to do, you know? And I think that's the difference between what we saw yesterday with Tadic and some of the things we've seen in the past with maybe some of our other players. So yeah, I have to agree with you there. Other big kind of notable absence is Davis. It seems like he may be done for the rest of the season. I've talked a lot on here about lack of leadership in the squad. Do you think that is going to have an impact on the team, or do you think that what we saw yesterday, we can continue to do that even if Davis isn't there, kind of providing that kind of seniority and that leadership presence?
I do think the absence of Davis has impacted Saints at this moment in time. I've got to be honest, if we're saying about, you know, if we were aiming for the table, I don't think Davis is good enough, you know, for that. But in the situation we're in at the moment, where we're needing men really to keep us up, we can't afford to carry people. Steven Davis falls into the bracket of, you know, the people you can trust. So I do think the win percentage without him in the team is a lot higher than him without, you know. So he obviously has an effect in the dressing room. You know, he's captain of his country, so he must be a leader in some way. Okay, he might not be the stereotypical leader who's shouting at everyone and, you know, giving it the big one, but he's clearly a leader in some respects. So I do think he does it. It will impact on the team, him not being in it.
Sure. All right. Well, we have a question here from the Saints FC page on Instagram. And once again, people can always submit their questions on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, however you would like. You can send private messages. You can post them. I don't care. We'll always take your questions. But Saints FC page asks, is it safe to come away with a point versus Everton next week, or do we need all 3? And, you know, looking at the table right now, you know, we're a point behind Swansea. We're, I guess, 3 points behind West Ham, Huddersfield. West Ham still have a game to play. Maybe they're playing right now, I think, against City as we're speaking. So by the time people hear this will have already happened. But, you know, what going into Everton away, what's a good result, I guess, in your opinion?
I think a point would be a good result at Everton, because we don't have a very good record there. But then that does ramp up the pressure on that Swansea game. If we can come away from Goodison with a win, I think it does kind of take the pressure a bit off Swansea, because the results yesterday have dragged Huddersfield back into it. I don't think you can rule out Huddersfield, especially with their fixture list. So I'd say a point is a good result, but obviously in the situation we're in at the moment, we need all 3, really.
Swansea have to go play Bournemouth next weekend, so we're definitely pulling for Bournemouth to have a slightly better performance than they had yesterday. But like you said, when we meet Swansea midweek, that's going to have some impact on the standings no matter what. But if we can get 3 points at Everton, like you said, I think that drags Huddersfield back. Their run-in is atrocious. They have Man City, Chelsea, and then Arsenal. So there is a chance there that they're not going to see another point. That's kind of what we're hoping for. But I worry, that if we leave it too late, I worry about us having to play just the one game to decide the season, or to have to go into Man City or up against Man City on the last day of the season and attempt to at least get a point. I worry about that. And I know there are probably Saints fans out there who have seen the team escape from maybe worse, and they've seen the team kind of survive on the last day of the season. But I'll be honest in that since my time watching, I haven't seen that. I've only ever seen us go up and up and up in the standings, and then last season to kind of finish in eighth is a step slightly backwards. But overall, I've never experienced this before, so I am freaking out basically about results and us staying up, because it's just something I haven't experienced yet.
It's a similar situation for me. I have seen them stay up on the final day 10 years ago now, blimey, against Sheffield United in the Championship. On the final day, they needed to win, and they managed to dig out a result against a team who at the time were looking to get into the playoffs in the Championship. So I have seen it before, but I do agree. And I sort of, yesterday's result has helped ease doubts that I have that this squad isn't the type, that when things are getting tough, they step up to it.
Yeah.
So that this result will only not just benefit them confidence-wise, but might give a little bit of confidence to the fans, thinking that, okay, these guys are going to fight. These guys can dig it out if needs be.
Yeah. All right. All right. So anything else on the match or on the season or anything else?
I think it's a very good win, and a win we obviously needed. Whether it will change that much will only be decided by Everton, Swansea, and possibly the Manchester City game. I think it's a game that we obviously is a good building block, but it's only a good building block if you actually build on it. So.
Right. And I think I've said things like that over and over and over. It's like, this is something to build on, but you actually have to build on it, And so hopefully we're going to have to string the best run of results together that we've had all season if we're going to do this. And if now is the time to do it, then so be it. I'd love to see it. So
yeah, I wouldn't have any doubt. If you said to me that we need to win one, maybe even two of those games, you look at that squad and you think we've definitely got the talent to do that. It's the mental aspect, it's the commitment, the mentality, that side of it that you think, okay, do we have that? That I think doubt starts creeping in.
Yeah, and there's got to be a difference in if you're already sitting in mid-table, you're going away to Swansea, it's midweek, you're probably going, this isn't so bad, we'll show up, we'll take care of business, we'll laugh and have a joke around in the hotel beforehand and the night before, and then we'll go play. You have to imagine they're going to be going into that match, no matter what happens at Everton, that they're going to be going into that match going like, this is serious. And you got to wonder about the mentality of some of those guys that haven't been through this before. Are they going to be able to put that pressure aside and go out and play their game? And I don't know. I just in talking about it, I'm going kind of all over the place in how I feel about it. So I don't know. We can only hope, and we'll see. And there's a chance I might be sick on that Tuesday and might not be might have to stay home from work to see that, because sometimes I can watch and just kind of be secretive about it, and other times I'm like, I think that's going to involve some emotions that kids are going to hear about it if I watch it at school, so we won't be able to do that. But I just do have a kind of a question for you in terms of your job and things like that. But if you could kind of go out to dinner, any of the guys that are at Sky Sports, or any of the I don't want to say guys, but any of the employees at Sky Sports, you can take three of them out and just kind of sit down with them and talk with them about whether it's journalism or football or whatever it is. Who are those three people, and where would you take them?
I guess the obvious one would be Matt Letizia, because of his, because of what he done at Southampton and how he transitioned from very good footballer into a media side of it, and how that came about, and that side of it. If I had to pick another one, I guess I'd pick a presenter, from Sky Sports News. I'd probably someone like Jim White, who's a presenter on the show, and how he went from where he was to becoming a presenter on the show, because I don't sometimes where people make things look so easy, the pressure that he's under, obviously he's wearing a mic, so he's got producers and directors talking in his ear. He's got if he's, asking a studio guest questions, he's got to think of those questions. He's got to listen to what is being said by the person. And it's just, how do you deal with that pressure? How have you, how can you have that skill where so much around you is happening, and how you make it look so easy, how he makes it look so, he makes it look so polished. I think that would be quite an interesting person to talk to. In terms of where I would take them, there's a place in Southampton which is probably not the most obvious place for a dinner like that, but there's a place in Southampton that if people haven't been, and if you haven't been there, then you should go next time you go. Is a Brazilian steakhouse called Casa Brazil. I've been there a few times, and that's a lot of fun. That's a really cool. It's like one of those Brazilian rodigios where you sit down at a table and the waiters come round with massive skewers of meat and sliced like beef, chicken. Honestly, it's so worth going to that. So if next time you're in Southampton, go to Casa Brazil.
Okay,
because that is one cool place.
All right, George. Well, thank you. I think we've about done it. We should, in terms of time and looking at it, we're about where we should be. So I think it's best to leave it here. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, and pleasure to be invited on, and really appreciate as well the fact that you've woken up so early to interview me. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Sorry to take up so much of your afternoon.
No. But sorry for taking up so much time of your early morning and taking some much needed sleep, I imagine.
It's all right. It'll be all right. All right, man. Well, we will, we'll hopefully have you on again, and we'll talk to you later.
Definitely. I'd love to be back on. Thank you very much for asking, and enjoy your day.
I will. Thank you. That does it for episode 69 of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed it. Special thanks to my guest this week, George Galpin. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram at ggalpin95. And you can see his work, although not him, on Sky Sports and Sky Sports News. As always, this podcast is partnered with The Saints Report. For all your Southampton FC news and needs, be sure to visit The Saints Report on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You will not be disappointed. The artwork for the show is done by the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt, who runs the page, has been a guest on this show. He's been with me the entire time. The artwork was actually the first thing I ever had done for the show. So special thanks to Matt for being there from episode 1. If you'd like to get in touch with anybody, the links are in the show notes. So do not hesitate to do that. You can also follow this show on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. We're at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter and Instagram. And we're at Facebook.com/SFC Delivery. There is no underscore in the Facebook address. And once again, links are in the show notes. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games. And the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. If you're a first-time listener, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, or wherever else you get your podcast. We're now on Spotify as well, so do not hesitate to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. If you've been listening for a while and you're enjoying the show, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. It really, really does help. And if you don't listen there, consider just sharing it with somebody around you. That also helps as well. Big game next week away at Everton. We don't have the best record up at Goodison Park, but it means a lot to us. And so we're going to take the full support and we're going to make sure that it happens. So all that being said, really looking forward to next week. And I hope you are too. So until next time, remember that together we march on.